Primary Tourist, Chapter 6. What's fun about the early part of the carnival is trying to figure out who the players are. Who's the new who this time around? Mid-August of 11 in particular, I was wondering about who is John Huntsman, one of the few Republicans I could see as president, which makes me think they're never going to nominate him, which might make him the new Nelson Rockefeller, who, in 1960, was duped by Nixon one-on-one to decide, for unity's sake, to not run, or so the story goes. So they nominated the vice president instead, a man hated but respected for his tenacity. Some admired, few trusted. But if Rockefeller had won the nomination, he would have wiped the floor with the Kennedys, they themselves thought, or so that story goes. And how about Obama? Is he going to be the next Jimmy Carter, the next George I? Who is John Huntsman? It's the oldest thing in the book, this new stuff. Nothing new under the sun. Shakespeare, I think. Like poetry. Nothing older than poetry, but it was brand new to me in 2011. Let me present to you, sir, a trio about the Donald. I start with Define Campaign, running for celebrity instead of president. Continue through to Reality's Revenge. Coming in 2012, so you want to be president. And conclude with Solution for the Common Man. I'm unemployed. Quick, give Trump a tax break. Wordplay, kind of, you know? I actually didn't always love it, but I always loved Word Adventure with Jennifer, but that's all for another day. But the play was interfering with my work. I hadn't written any fodder for Moby in a long time, and of course I could always blame Munchkin City for giving me so little inspiration. As it turns out, I only had one shot at seeing candidate Pawlenty. Soon after tax day, he was gone. It really figured, though. He was what you call a bad communicator, a perfect storm rather than a perfect candidate. He was ready to mix it up with Bachmann, but wasn't fervent enough, in style more than substance. Legislative record? Irrelevant. Not if you're seen as the wooden man. Remember, you can't perform as president until you, the actor you, performs in the role of next president. The campaign and me had come to a summer's lull. Campaigns always do, only the dates to point out that it's a long way to New Hampshire, but that there's not a president in this crowd. And my lull was seasonal and financial. Nobody wanted to think about theater, let alone buy it. My buddy Rod always said nothing bad ever happened to a writer, so I started writing about it, you know? If you'd allow me, I'd love to present to you one more poem. Job. Commission sales. Earn your paycheck. Justice is so cruel. But, as it does every year, summer becomes fall and time for early hunting. Hear me, Dick? I'm coming after you, all the way to New Hampshire where there are loved ones, hills, mills. And you, Dick, I know you're out there. You're hiding behind Rick Santorum. Not long after the 2008 cycle, Rod and Erica moved from downtown Concord to the edge of town, the Pennacook section. Gorgeous area, just what you think of when you think of New Hampshire. On Sunday, September 18th, 2011, I was up there helping Rod volunteer for the Snob Film Festival. I don't know why, but none of the films really did it for me this time around. But today, that was all over, and I was in New Hampshire, and I was able to wake and bake and write my poems. I didn't know what to call them, like haikus, but, you know, even though they said the counting thing wasn't so necessary, I just didn't want to call them haikus. By the end of the day, the term Spaiku would be coined. So technically, the first Spaiku was written that day. For poetic license, let's say this following, written this beautiful morning, was the first Spaiku. The economy's dietary potion. Spend more, then less. stir, reverse and repeat. And the funny thing is, the poem came to me on the way to the compost heap. It was me, the compost heap, the birds singing in the deep, deep fog. Some would say I was all alone, but the birds in the fog count for something. Or should I say someone? And of course my weed was there. All of it made you thank the gods for this moment, because we all know not all moments are created equal, and they're gone so damn quick. So what I do is go back in, sit, and wait to catch a poem. I had to write 5 poems, a self-imposed quota. Then this story comes on NPR about the economy, and I had one less poem to catch. I heard some rumbling upstairs. That would be Erica. She's almost as much of an early bird as I am, and Rod not far behind. Before too long, he'll be making breakfast fit for 2 kings and a queen. Good morning, Spike. It is, too. Erica was already looking out the window, seeing more with her baby blues before breakfast than most people see all day. Then she noticed I had been writing. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were writing. But I was done already. Just 1 word wasn't quite right. Maybe 2. Almost, I said, and she knew what I meant. She also knew she couldn't read my handwriting, so I read her the poem. French politics. Will the jaws of justice swallow his chance as president? It wasn't too bad a poem about Strauss-Kahn. Remember him, sir? He was on the fast track to be president of France until he was caught in bed with the maid at a hotel in New York. Rape, she said. Consensual sex, he said. Guilty was the verdict in the court of public opinion. Made the not guilty verdict in the court of law seem kind of like a cruel joke. But swallow isn't quite right. Jaws don't swallow, they chew. So choose the word? The word is chew. Chew, she said. When I was done with Spaikus, I had 800 other things. Only 1 word was someone else's. Chew. So much better. I then counted the syllables. Damn. What's wrong? The damn count is off, so I can't call it a haiku. Spaikus are better than haikus. And we both laughed, but we both knew we had something. As in Spike who? Erica was on a roll. The laughter woke Rod up. God, what a morning. The compost heap, the fog, the weed, the laughter, chew, Spaiku, all deliciously too much. Can a guy get some sleep in his own house? Evidently not. More peals of laughter. The voice was coming through the vent. They don't make godlike voices from above like they used to. Damn tourists. Damn volunteers. Your low self-esteem shocks me. Will you just get your ass down here? I don't like it when you lord things over me. Let me get some clothes on. Thanks for the image. He had to pay attention to getting dressed, so Erica and I started to talk about plans for the day. Well, where's Keene? Who's in Keene? She read my mind. Light reading. Rick Santorum, at a shooting range. Is he any good? About as good, in his own way, as Mitt Romney. Oh my. We both chuckled in that, what's this world come to kind of way. It's not the same as last time. Well, it's all Republicans this time. But I knew it was different because the carnival was always different, because the cast of characters is always different. This time it seems like, there's more clowns than heroes. And it's all pandering shit to the Tea Party. Gets wacko Republicans thinking they can actually win the nomination. And non-wacko Republicans trying to figure out how to look just wacko enough. The thing is at the Cheshire Gun Club. I've been trying to get Rod to check out a gun club. The only 3 times I ever had a gun in my hand, Rod had put it there, long before Erica. The first time was a pistol about 30 years ago. I kind of got off on the technology of it, how ironically delicate an instrument a gun is. He was a caregiver at a Baptist camp at the time, and the shooting took place in the backyard. The second time was at the same place, probably about a month later, and my interest, not to mention my aim, definitely proceeded to wane. About 15 years later, I had a gun in my hands again, this time a shotgun, and clay pigeons were the target. A moving target and a big boom were never my style. Plus, there's that other thing, too. Yeah, sure, the old cliche is true. Guns don't kill, people do. But isn't that kind of like saying screwdrivers don't install doors, people do? Sure is a lot easier with a screwdriver, though. And I'm not saying my opinion makes sense, but it was the way I felt. Feelings don't have to make sense. They seldom do. So how far to Keene? Oh, what a beautiful drive. Up the road a stretch. The voice from above had come down to earth. Rod rubbed his chin. It's at a gun club. You could check it out. Erica was ever helpful. I know, but I'm beat after all that volunteering. You guys go. Well, you know what they say about volunteers. What's that? They're worth every penny you pay them. They must have been talking about you, Spike. I would have worked harder had they bought better pizza. Well, you get what you pay for. My point exactly. You don't really understand the lazy man. You see, I thought I was a lazy man back then. Ironic, right? Now I know how fucking hard I'll work just to get 10 feet away. Back then I thought I was lazy. I was letting Dick do my thinking for me. I defer to your expertise. It was another morning with more and more peals of laughter. New Hampshire magic. You know, if you're truly not lazy, come with us to shoot with Rick Santorum. Well, it's more tempting when you put it that way. Problem is, when I'm tired, I can't aim right. And only Dick Cheney can get away with that one. So really, you're going to wuss out on us? I think I'll spend my afternoon in my backyard. And he had a point. For himself, not for Erica or me. So it was going to be Erica and me, which is what I figured. Erica and Rod definitely had different energy levels. Most people would have trouble keeping up with Erica, but Rod had 3 speeds, skiing, slow, and slower, as opposed to Erica, skiing fast and faster. Yet they're soulmates. The heart is a real tricky muscle. In a little while, I was waiting for Erica to be ready. After what seemed like a forever wait, we were in Erica's car, a 2005 Volvo. Within about 3 minutes after that, I was putting weed into Erica's cigarette-disguised pipe. I was never opposed to a bit of a pick-me-up a few hours after wake and bake. Too bad John couldn't come along. Oh, he just wanted to kick back. He was the best volunteer Snob had this year. I just hope it leads to a job. Any chance of that? It better. We have 3 adults and only one is working. She had an adult daughter that technically still lived with her, but was only there when she had no place else to be. Just like Frost said, home is where when you have to go there, they have to let you in, or something like that. This can't continue. He'll find something. But what? These are tough times to be 50 and unemployed. But the day and the buzz were beautiful. Wasn't that enough? You would think it would be, like it's the oldest cliche in the world, this our-town life has gone so quick, chestnut. You know? You think you understand it intellectually, but boy, nothing like a stroke to make you realize there's no other way to say it, even if it's corny. Life is precious, and it's all over in a blink of an eye. If there was a pretty way to go, Erica would find it. And she would convince herself that it was quicker. Sometimes she might have been right. Who knows? She might have been right that day. I've never been to Keene. Nice ride. Sure is beautiful around here. So when are you moving up? One thing Rhode Island has that New Hampshire doesn't. What's that? A job. And if it did? You know, I was going to say, how about family? Then I realized you and Rod are as much family as I got. You know, sir, I was going to say, and there's no Jennifer in New Hampshire, but I know it would go right down the age difference road. Ironic that the only way I win that argument is with a time machine and show Erica how wrong she is, because in the future there will be a stroke, and Jennifer will, not with pity, but with joy, with adventure with my post-stroke self, better than my before-stroke self. That is, to say the least, a keeper. New Hampshire doesn't have one of those, does it? I'll tell you what, I'm figuring on an extended trip in January anyway. If I can find a job, I'm moving somewhat north of Boston. And hidden among the hills and mills and wannabes is the great white himself, waiting to be nabbed. So what are you looking for? Inspiration, perspiration. They hiring? It's out there. So's Rick Santorum. Turns out he's not such a bad guy one-on-one under the magical spell of New Hampshire during wannabe season. Never mind that he was blathering out about Obamacare was the root of all evil. He was convincing two concerned voters, one of them a concerned New Hampshire voter, that he was human, which is important when you're packing a weapon and running for president. He had some retail politics cred, for sure, but you can tell he had no real shot. Erica and I had him to ourselves, which is a lot better for tourists than it is for wannabes. We had a great ride back, spent some time at, to tell you the truth, I'm not sure, but I think it was the highest elevation of any town in New Hampshire, and Erica and I had a picnic on a spot near a running brick. But I seem to recall eating at a roadside market, then finding the spot and stopping there for a puff, maybe two. You know what, though? I like her memory better than mine. So I guess that's what happened. But what I remember most about the day was the sun going down back at Rod and Erica's place. The radio down the road letting us know how the Patriots are doing. Two of my best friends alongside me, being a tourist, not a political tourist, being alive in New Hampshire during the early fall, late summer of 2011. Rick Santorum was just down the road a few miles, but the radio was fine for me. That and the pleasure of being alive. Well, I'm still alive. That's the good news, I guess. Time? That figures. I'll catch you next time, God willing. Primary Tourist, Chapter 7. You never know when something, part of your routine, hell, almost part of your DNA, will cease to be. Like my buddy Steve, the most talented person I've ever known. He had somewhat of a relationship with cocaine, but it was the eclair that killed him. Fucking diabetes. My last road trip with Steve was my first excursion to New Hampshire in search of wannabes. The wannabe I was seeking in the summer of '03 was Howard Dean. He was at a convention the week before, but I thought it was today. Oops. Steve was coming along for the ride. I went to his doorstep, and he came out to the car with a bag that had 2 eclairs, one for each of us, and 3 wine biscuits. It was a long ride. Time to head northward, for Steve to get out of the house, for me to pursue Dick or Howard Dean. Same thing. Steve was the navigator, map in one hand, eclair in the other. Where are we heading? Durham, New Hampshire. It sounded so easy. I got a number I'll call when I get close. We gonna stop for coffee? Does a bear shit in the woods? I was never sure what that means, but I said it often. That's when I'll eat a wine biscuit. Be prepared. You must have been a hell of a Boy Scout. Steve laughed. There's no use describing that laugh, and it's gone before you know it. I don't even remember hearing that laugh for the last time, when that would have been. Because the first you can know. You never heard that before. What a neat laugh. But the last? It's not like you can say, oh, and I'll never hear that again. The laugh goes long before the obituary hits the paper. You know what I'm saying? We stopped at a Cumberland Farms long enough to buy coffee. It truly was time to have my eclair. You know, it really was poison to both me and Steve, but it was so delicious. One of us is still alive to tell such a boring yet deadly cautionary tale. That makes me the lucky one, I guess. So we're going to some event at New Hampshire? That's the plan, kind of, sort of. As long as there's some sweet college ladies. And that's about as far as Steve, and let's face it, lots of the young that got involved. Don't let the Birkenstocks fool you. That's about as far as they wanted to go with the Howard Dean Revolution. Don't get me wrong. Steve, as well as a whole bunch of us, really, really hated Bush, Rumsfeld, Cheney, that whole bunch. But it's a lot easier to be against than for. And people did admire Dean. I guess, in retrospect, they hated Bush so much, enough to fuel a negative passion, which is all well and good, but it's hard to win when your main appeal is that you're not the other guy. Ah, democracy in action. Well, looks matter. That's why neither of us will ever be president. That would be among the reasons, yes. So are we going to a conference or what? Right on campus? I think Steve was earning on the assumption that the hottest babes would be the ones on campus. Any campus. Something like that. Where are we now? Somewhere between Pawtucket and Durham. And Steve laughed again. Time for me to find out about the convention. I think it was a convention. Something basically set up for college kids to be deniacs and do all the grunt work. That's how I remember it, but it was a while ago. I dialed the number. Hi, what time is the convention? Oh, that was last week. Are you interested in getting Dr. Dean into the White House? I wasn't sure how to answer that. I was interested, yes, sure, like I was interested in winning the lottery. It would be nice, yes, but I'd rather keep my $2 than buy the ticket. I'll call you back. I hung up. Well, oops, that damn laugh again. So what's up? I got the fucking date wrong. Well, did we ever figure out where we are? I don't think we did. Let's look for signs. I spotted a sign to Manchester. 20 miles to Manchester. Good diners in Manchester. And it's the capital city. I didn't know what a big deal that was. The political center of the universe for about 2, maybe 3 months. Then poof, as soon as the carnival came, it disappeared again. But I was wrong about the capital city, and Steve knew it. No, it's not. Concord is. Oops. That laugh again. Funny how different that laugh felt now that I was, the butt of the joke. It's all context. Hey, is that wine biscuit still around? I can feel my blood sugar dropping. If it was heroin, everybody would be up in arms. But it's sugar, and who doesn't love good old sugar? But we were both on a suicidal path. He was just better at it. He was given a worse hand, I guess. Who knows? Why one person lives, another not so lucky. Oh, it would be perfect right about now? Some of this fine ganja. Yeah, man. And he was somewhere else as we puffed my weed. In Jamaica, in his act, more than an act, he let the language speak for itself. He was more than a comic, more than a linguist even, though he was both. More than a historian, though he was that too. Steve, one of a kind. Gone. Who knew? Good shit. Yeah, I'm pleased. If I could have a steady flow of pot, I don't really need the coke. How about the eclairs? I expected a belly laugh, a giggle maybe, but what I got was an excruciating long silence. That is the question. More silence. Then he asked, have you ever wished you weren't Italian? I know what you mean, but no. I lied. I think. I do know that Italians, lots of us anyway, have a dysfunctional relationship with food. It's kind of equated with love. Lots of negativity, man, balanced out with food. Great food, though, but I had been there. I'm serious. Me too. Steve thought for a few minutes. You do have a point. Now I play back that conversation in my mind, thinking if only I didn't turn the conversation to a different place, a less reflective place. He'd be alive. I'd be walking. Things would be different if only I was somebody else. Or maybe if he was somebody else. But neither of us were. We were stuck with being ourselves. By that time, we were heading towards downtown Manchester. It all had that blur of newness then. I had never been to Manchester, the center of the political universe, but only every 4 years. It had that exciting newness to it, almost like a new car smell, you know what I mean? And I had been reading up on which diners were big for Clinton people in '92, and I was kind of thinking that this first fling with the New Hampshire primary will have kind of the feel of a pilgrimage to it. I had some notes scribbled inside a paperback copy of Primary Colors, and what the hell? There's no convention, got to do something, maybe a tour of the local diners. That'll keep Steve's attention almost as well as college babes. Maybe more. Sugar was always Steve's first love. When push came to shove, he gave his life for it. We stopped at a variety store, don't ask me why. What I remember is that the television was on CNN, and for some reason, that seemed surreal to me. I don't remember what stories were on, but it seemed like because it was New Hampshire, and at least one story came from New Hampshire, everybody was super concentrating on the TV, like they were considering their vote already. They only get this feeling of importance once every 4 years. Maybe it was just me. Probably it was the pot. Half a block up was the Manchester Diner, which was on my Primary Colors list. So we can have breakfast or lunch, and I get the first pilgrimage establishment off my list. And Steve got a tiny but cool deco diner. We each got to feed one of our monkeys. The other ones were still lurking unsated. We each had the French toast with cinnamon and maple syrup baked right into the bread, just screaming to be smothered with even more maple syrup. Across the street, up about a block, was this movie theater with this great marquee. I had never heard of the Palace Theater back then, wasn't even on my list. Little did I know that it should have been, and here it was. I went to the door, hoping to walk in. I knew the door was probably locked, and it was. Lights were off, but I peeked, saw what I could, got within shouting range of the magic. It'll hear me. It'll come my way. In the meantime, it was time to head to the car, to look at the Primary Colors list, to see what I could see. The pilgrimage continues. Chez Vachon. Bill Clinton used to love the poutine there. I figured, hell, when it comes to poutine, if it's good enough for Bill Clinton, it's good enough for me. Especially since I had no idea what poutine is. In case you're wondering, it's an ungodly mix of French fries, cheese curds, and gravy. I can feel my arteries harden just remembering it. There's another diner on the West End, Chez Vachon. They have a world-class poutine, whatever that is. Oh, nothing's better than poutine. Just what the doctor ordered. We just ate. Your point is? And he giggled. At the time I laughed, but now it seems ominous, makes me a little sick to my stomach, to tell you the truth. Again, another opportunity for both of us. So what do? They say laughter is contagious. Steve's was the most contagious of all. So I laughed at my own downfall. And Steve's too, of course. We figured how to get to Chez Vachon. It was on the other side of the bridge, and it was like a new world. Seemed like there were a few French-Canadian names splattered around, and Steve was no longer Jamaican man. He was a Canuck, if you forgive my political incorrectness. It wasn't a shtick like it would be with other comics. It was a dialect, as surely as if it were from a top linguist. And somehow it got us thinking about another bowl. So in the same afternoon, I got to get high with a Jamaican man and a lumberjack, eh? And it was the same guy. There weren't a lot of people there. A number of the people there had their laptops up, talking on their cell phones. I had the impression, or was it fantasy, that they were on staffs of presidential candidates. There could be history in the making, hidden among the poutine. I felt obligated to order the poutine, just for pilgrimage purposes. And I could see why Bill Clinton liked it so much. To tell you the truth, I wasn't too hungry, but that didn't stop me from finishing it. That was me back then. It's a miracle I didn't kill myself. Steve had his heaping helping, too. He wasn't so lucky. Hell, when Steve's my age, he'll be dead 17 years. I think there's another diner near here. I can use a cup of coffee. I can use dessert. So off we went again with an address and a map of New Hampshire with an inset map of Manchester. We might as well have had a fucking compass and a view of the sun. Somehow we got there. I don't even remember the name of the place. I do remember it had pictures of past presidents and wannabe presidents. All I ordered was coffee, and Steve ordered a cinnamon roll, which looked deadly and delicious. I guess it was. Much more directly than I thought. Back in the car, there was a strange sound coming from under the hood and a long way from home. We opened the hood, but neither of us knew what we were looking for. Time for one last bowl for the ride back. This time Steve was just Steve. Too tired for dialects. He was introspective, which made sense, considering the day he had planned for tomorrow. Dialysis tomorrow? But I knew the answer. Yep, every Monday and Wednesday. Does it hurt? Jesus, how can I even ask that? But I did. It fucking wipes me out. I can't even imagine. Little did I know how true that was. It really is impossible to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. I'm just about recovered from Monday by Wednesday. Well, try to enjoy this ride home, and good luck tomorrow. And the rest of the ride was pretty much in silence, except for odd car sounds and some good tunes from the radio. Before you knew it, we were back in Pawtucket. Thanks for giving me something else to think about for a little while. My pleasure. Well, I'll catch you later. Yeah, good luck tomorrow. And he was out the door. I saw him maybe a half a dozen times after that. That was our last road trip together. Within 3 years, he was dead. Time? Yeah, I guess it is. Funny. I'm always surprised at how quick the end comes.